Daredevil is our true public enemy.
According to eyewitnesses, the brutal attack has been carried out by none other than Daredevil.
Who are you? I'm Daredevil.
Is there any other characters, something that you want to touch with?
I do want to say it kind of went south at the end for me. The action and everything was good, but the harder part was that most movies and TVs deal with revenge, and this one played it up worse than anything. Now, my favorite character in the series is Vanessa, because they bring Vanessa back, and of course she's a babe, she's gorgeous, but she's introduced and she's not immediately into the Kingpin. And there's some tension going on, and Kingpin is like, I'm pulling out all the stops. I'm making, the classic guy making eggs in the morning thing. And she's like, you're basically trying to buy me. And I want to be a part of your entire world. Where she really gets into the aspect of being the Kingpin's wife. And that's a powerful character that's not apologetic for who she is and what she's going to become. And it's one of the few characters that are like saying, I'm in this world with you. And then that goes to the painting that they love. We find out that was a
Holocaust survivor.
A Holocaust survivor. So that we don't know how Vanessa got that picture. And she had no problem with it. And she had no problem with knowing that they used force to get the picture back. So we had a character just unapologetic about where she's at in the story.
Yeah, but she was a realist because she knew when she saw like blood on the.
But she wanted to connect with the Kingpin, and she knew that he was trying to separate his being Kingpin of crime and
what did she say?
love life.
She didn't want to be one of the shiny objects that he puts on the wall. She wanted to be part of his life. And one of the things she does in part of his life, she's the one who orders the death of Agent Nadim.
Yes.
And
says use Dex for it, which is a powerful scene. But then, what's the name? Matt Murdock has all the pieces to sort of push the vengeance part in Dex, which that was like crazy to me because basically, like Matt Murdock is sending Dex to kill everybody. It's like, is this what's going to happen? And then he just stops them from killing Vanessa at the end. Yeah. That's what this is? He's like, I don't want it to be that sort of vengeance. Is insane. And I understand it's a villain wedding.
He's a nutcase, bro. He's a nutcase.
But Daredevil's sending him to kill everybody, and then stops at killing the FBI agent. She survived because she got a kid, but she had to take some pain. And
the corrupt FBI agent, the one who set up Nadim.
Vanessa and Kingpin survived. But it also had another powerful scene of a big fight between Daredevil, Dex, and the Kingpin.
Okay, so we got that now. So let's talk about the comic book comparisons, and what do you think about that with Born Again story? I mean, you start off a little bit saying that you like the way they interspersed some of the Born Again, the way they did. It was very different from Born Again, but at the same time, they had many elements. I mean, Karen Page not being a porn star and cocaine. But they do add that in her backstory, how she was.
I'm not asking for that, because what Frank Miller did was connected to her going out to Hollywood, being a movie star, and then at some point she's out because there's parties, drugs, all that's involved in being in Hollywood. Which, I mean, he's been involved in Hollywood. He would understand that. So then when her star is on low ebb, she finds hard times. And there's a bit where she's at her lowest and she's been, selling herself, and she gives up the last thing that she has. So it's the point of the relationship of that she, at her lowest, she gives up the closest thing to her Matt's identity. And then when you get to them meeting again, Daredevil has no vantage point of how this all happened. He just knows the Kingpin got it and just tearing his life apart. he's just about building his life, and he finds Karen, and and it's like a powerful moment where he's like, I didn't lose anything, and then we've already seen like 5 issues, so it's very different. It's kind of hard to try to. I didn't want them to shoehorn.
But they didn't, and that's what I'm saying. But they did aspects of it. They didn't do all of it.
No, they did having her have a drug habit and selling drugs and that stuff.
And of course,
but
she's taking like Urich's role, the reporter, where Urich.
I think that the stronger things is when you get to the end and you have them coming up with doing the law firm again. Those are powerful scenes. Stick with the stuff that. Why did you just turn over? I said I liked how that ended. Those things.
And there's so much more in between, and that's the only stuff you like. Like how they.
No, I didn't say that was the only stuff I liked. I said that.
I just wonder sometimes, man. You just don't like me.
What?
You don't like me.
I'm saying this. You're just trying to drive me crazy. All right. So when you look at this, when you had what we want from the beginning was what they gave us in season 1. We want. What's that? Nelson and Murdoch.
Yes.
And we have Karen in there, and that's where they would get back to when we get to the end of the story. But it's a hard fight, and that's one of the things when they have one of the witnesses, they have Nadim, and they're finally together as a pseudo law firm representing Nadim. Foggy leaves because Foggy handles all the law stuff, all of the book stuff, and they go to Matt, and it's like saying, "Why should I defend you? Should anybody care? You sold everybody out. You never did the right thing. Why should anybody care?" And then he says, "Oh, I did it. I did this stuff. I have a family, and I just wish I made the right decision then." And that pushes Nadim in the right place when he goes to testify.
Right.
And it shows how the team can work as far as Foggy being sort of the front, Matt sort of getting to the hard stuff. But it was more a scene where Matt is not believing in the law. So,
yeah, I mean, for a while that's a key thing, but that's not what I asked you in terms of the comic. But that's okay.
What do you in terms of comparison?
Yeah, in comparison.
It's hard to compare the comic book because there's scenes that
It doesn't have to be a 1-for-1. But what are your?
No, I'm going for 1-for-1. The 1-for-1 is that Matt finds out that Sister Maggie is his mother. Right? And there's this long episode of 2 or 3 episodes where he's mad at her. In the comic book, what happens? She nurses him back to life. She's been there with him. And he comes out the blue. It's no lead up to it. He just asks her.
He figures it out.
He said, "Are you my mother?" No, he said, "Are you my mother?" Because he just remembers the cross. And she said, no. And he said, and all he says is her heartbeat skipped.
Yeah.
That's the scene. And that's something that you're having a thought balloon, all the stuff that's comic book stuff that you can't do. Whereas they do it, and Matt is like sort of, Maggie comes in, "Here's your clothes, guys," and Matt is like, this.
He overheard hers in the vestry, I guess.
Yeah. So I think that was a weaker moment for me. I think they would if they had a moment where they had him sort of figure a way to do it, but I don't think that translated well. I think that them trying to do the car scene with the cab when they put it into the water, that scene was powerful. That scene when he's in the cab, and that's from the comic book.
And then the comic, then you had Nuke being Daredevil.
No, there's a Daredevil, but that was so quick because the Melvin part was so different than in the comic book.
Yeah.
Melvin is sort of at the end of his career. This one, they tried to do the Gladiator, and he has a saw thing. They had a big fight, so they made a big fun fight out of it. They did. Because in the other thing,
it's painted over.
Melvin's like, "I'm not going to make the costume," and Matt Murdock says, he comes with no costume and says, "Make the costume." So when there's a big fight, Daredevil stops him before he becomes the devil of Hell's Kitchen. He beats him up and takes the costume back, and it's like, no, there's just some beat up man on a roof with no clothes on. So,
okay. So overall, we like the show.
But I'm saying you can't. If going from season 3, don't get upset with me. Going from season 2 or Defenders, it's gonna be hard to shoehorn. So there was a lot of changes to make to do a Born Again saga because you're starting in the middle where Born Again is. That's what
that's a good point. It is, but
I wasn't expecting to be the same.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's not exactly the same, but the elements, and I thought they did a really good job of interweaving the elements with season 3. I think that it's powerful when you have someone who has to go down to his depths, and that's the basic of Born Again, he has to hit the rock bottom before he realized the people that he wanted to cut off and leave were the same people who were going to help him no matter what. Foggy and Karen.
In the comic book, he cuts off Foggy. So it's a sad point for me.
Yeah.
So, but then I think who is it? Anna
he came back to
Cynthia brought
Karen,
Yeah, he came, but the connection with him and Karen. But that's also, if you read Daredevil, there's also him on this crazy relationship with Elektra, which was basically almost killing him, and then he connects back with someone, which that connects. Born Again in the comic connects him back to what Stan was doing, because basically a lot of fans would be like, oh, you know, I didn't like Daredevil till Frank Miller or till Roger McKenzie got on the book. And having Karen in the story, and then afterwards Karen being in the story, and what's the name, in Anna Senti's run, and regretfully them taking her out and guiding, it was a Guardian Devil. Like that moment connects Frank's run with what happened in Stan's run, outside of Mike Murdock. So, in my opinion.
I don't know, but hey,
But don't you know?
I'll defer to you. So, ladies and gents, as you can see, I loved it. Petey loved it too. Get out there and watch it. If not, Netflix is going to drop the show. Okay?
Drop Jessica Jones.
I'm not saying drop anything,
that last
but don't drop it.
season was like, Daredevil.
We're sticking to Daredevil.
Great build.
We're sticking to Daredevil.
Season 1, good or decent. Season 2, amazing because they had all those characters. Season
Punisher.
3, a lot of fun.
Spinner Rack out.